growth comes in a lot of different shapes, forms, or fashions. And episode 17 focuses heavily on that for who is seemingly just a background character. But why was this episode so heavily focused on it? And what did we gain from all of it? Well, let's talk about it, shall we? There's been a lot of talk about Melt over the past season and a half and the roles that he's played throughout the series so far. From delivering a subpar performance in the adaptation of Sweet Today to the point that the mangaka won't even speak to him, to working his ass off in the 6 months in between that we're seeing flashbacks of throughout the season, and all of that culminating in a fight scene where he either has to shine or be put out like a smoldering flame. With expectations weighing on him and opening day finally upon us, we finally get to see if his preparations were worth it. And, well, if the artist behind the Oshinoko manga, Mengo Yokuyari's reaction is anything to go off of, then yes, it was beyond worth it. She tweeted after the episode aired that she was in tears over it. And honestly, same. As a fan of the manga, seeing these scenes finally animated, it was an utter joy. Because although it was a truly faithful recreation of chapters 56 through 58, it provided an entirely new experience to be enjoyed all over again. The sakuga being used to bring the Tokyo Blade stage play alive is unreal. Oshinoko is a seinen for crying out loud, and yet it's receiving top-tier shonen levels of treatment. Doga Kobo is going above and beyond for this show, and it's showing. From Yokuyari-san's tweet to other fan sentiments across the internet, almost everyone universally agrees that this was an incredible episode. But what all took place in this episode? Well, the play opens at the same point that it was referenced in the first episode. We, the television or internet audience, get to see the play opening from the perspective of the theater audience. And as an American who's never even remotely heard of a 2.5D play before Oshinoko, I found it perfectly portrayed the experience to us. Following that, we're treated to a very well choreographed and acrobatic fight scene between Kana and Taiki as Tsurugi and Blade, respectively, which, from the manga perspective, was just a regular Shonen Jump style scene. However, the anime breathed new life into the scene, giving us gorgeous visuals and stunning acting performances, which, from an anime perspective, is brilliant because it actually gives us the ability to take in the acting from the play and let us as an audience actually be able to take in the differences in acting styles rather than having to be told that they exist. And from a viewer's point of view, to not be treated like we're stupid and to not have to have our hand be held is so nice. And finally, the coup de grace for the episode that we discussed earlier, the scene with Narashima Melt. Aka Akasaka never fails to disappoint when it comes to fleshing out a side character. If you've seen Kaguya-sama Love is War, you know exactly what I'm talking about. From Shirogune's father and sister stories to Hayasaka to, well, look at Nagi-san and Tsubasa, who are the couple that made a habit of flaunting their relationship to the student council members. Akasaka-san's constantly makes a habit of taking throwaway characters that a normal mangaka and writer wouldn't think twice about and presenting them like they're the most important character in the entire series. It's truly a beautiful thing to have a character that's destined to stay in the shadows and have them presented in a way that brings the audience to tears. That's the mark of beautiful writing, and that's the mark of an incredible animation team. But what really happened to bring this to the forefront of our minds for this episode? Narashima Melt was designed to be a thorn in the side of the audience. Melt's backstory isn't a tragic one. It isn't fraught with struggle and strife. Instead, he's characterized by the absence of past struggle. Everything came easily to him. He had everything he could ever ask for handed to him, from jobs and modeling gigs to his pick of any girl around, all the while coasting through life on the merits of his good looks. But what did it take for him to come to the realization that he really wasn't as great as what the world and he himself made him out to be? Sweet Today. That's right, the show that he and Kana Arima starred in. The show that was based off of one of the most beloved shoujo mangas in Akasaka's fictional world. It opened his eyes to just how subpar he really was, and every bit of this is at the forefront of his mind as he has to face off in the second act of the Tokyo Blade play against Sakuya. Sakuya, on the other hand, is the exact opposite of Melt. He's an incredibly skilled actor with loads of 2.5D play experience. However, he's also a sleazy playboy despite being a character that's the opposite. So, with having Melt's most formidable foe before him, does he actually fall to the pressure? Well, in a direct parallel to Tokyo Blade's manga, Melt's story up to this point leads us to believe that he's going to just drop the ball. We expect it. The audience of the play expects it. Hell, even Melt himself expects it. However, that's not what happens. Melt, after having finally found solace in the fact that the inner turmoil he's been feeling in himself is exactly what his character Kizumi was feeling, had been working himself to the bone quite literally to be able to pull off this scene. He even met with Aqua to ask him some advice on what he could do, to which Aqua told him that there wasn't really anything he could do to fix his whole performance. But what he could do was focus on one scene, put all of his time and effort into just 60 seconds, and make that 60 seconds the most important performance of his whole life. And so he does. Melt fully leans into Kizumi's feelings and channels all of that into his fight with Sakuya. He takes what was a kind of mundane scene in the manga and turns it into a beautifully choreographed scene, with kick flipping his sword up into the air, backflipping, and putting his heart, soul, blood, sweat, and tears into what was a genuine masterpiece. And he finally proved that he had what it takes to shatter his ceiling and grow into a true and proper actor. From earning the respect of Sakuya to having Abiko sing his praises over how cool he made that scene, to finally earning the acknowledgement of Yoriko. She was his biggest detractor, the person who wanted nothing more in the world than for him to fail. And he left her in tears. That is growth. That is storytelling. And that is why this show is one of the most incredible pieces of media in the world. When we, the television audience, actually feel the same feelings of an audience of a play in a fictional world, that is a masterpiece. I'd also like to give a personal congratulations to the voice actor of Melt, Seiji Maeda, for his performance this week. It's a hard thing to act as if you're a bad actor, especially as we know how good he is during scenes when his character isn't acting himself. But this week, his performance was phenomenal. The very subtle changes to his character's tone whilst on stage made it clear that his speaking performance wasn't as fluid as his fellow actors, but the passion that he showed during the internal monologues exposed his true talent. And we greatly admire him for it. His performance was stilted and stiff while his character was performing, but impassioned and solid when he wasn't. I could hear the challenges Melt had with his acting in the voice actor's words in a way that perfectly displayed the difference in skill between him and his fellow actors. It was truly a brilliant week for Seiji Maeda. And that was Oshinoko episode 17. Thank you all so much for watching this video. We really appreciate it. As always, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and also do tell us down in the comments below if you enjoyed this week's episode of Oshinoko. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.